Just minutes ago, surprising news came from China's new huge dam, shocking people all over the world. Built on the Yangtze River where earthquakes often happen, this giant dam was supposed to be a wonder of green energy. But now it's causing a lot of worry. People are arguing about how it affects the environment, and it's creating tension between countries. What if this big project to control nature ends up causing more problems than it solves? Tune in as we expose the specific dangers threatening this massive structure. The dark path of China's mega dam. The goal of this massive project is not just to benefit local people, but to have a global impact. The focus isn't only on building a giant dam but on using the natural power of the water. However, what was expected to be a huge success is now raising eyebrows. Instead of being a shining example of clean energy, this dam has sparked concern about potential environmental disasters and even international conflicts. As the turbines grind to a halt, the ominous silence that follows is not just the absence of machinery, it's the quiet before the storm. But this isn't the worst part. There's growing worry that the dam could be on the verge of failing, and there may be even more serious problems hiding beneath the surface. In this article, we'll look deeper into what's going wrong with China's mega dam, including the possible environmental chaos and worldwide effects it could trigger. With a price tag of 200 billion yuan, this project is even bigger than the Three Gorges Dam and has required some bold, risky decisions to make it happen. China's longest river, the Yangtze, is now lined with a series of dams, forming a network of hydropower stations in some of the most remote and dangerous areas on Earth. These rivers, which start high in the mountains, provide water to a large part of the world's population. The Yangtze River is especially important for China's economic goals, and more than a dozen dams are being built along its stretch, despite the narrow valleys and high risk of earthquakes that make construction difficult. But here's the real concern. This dam, which cost a staggering 200 billion yuan, about $28 billion, took almost 20 years to build. It forced more than 1 million people to leave their homes along the Yangtze River. The government promised the dam would protect against massive floods that only happen once in a century, but now there's doubt about whether it can actually do that. Recently, these worries have come up again as the Yangtze Basin experienced its heaviest rainfall in nearly 60 years, causing the river to overflow. And the situation gets even worse. As heavy rains continue to pour down in central and southern China, experts are sounding the alarm that one of the world's largest dams may be close to collapsing. The impact has been devastating. So far, more than 150 people have either died or are missing, 3.5 million have been forced to leave their homes, and 54 million people have been affected. The economic damage is estimated at 144 billion yuan, or about $2.5 billion. In a region called Sichuan Autonomous Prefecture, a large group of people gathered outside the local government office to express their concerns. They were asking for the construction of a new hydroelectric power plant to be stopped. This plant was planned to produce over 1 million kilowatts of electricity using the water from the Du River. However, building it would force many local Tibetans to leave their homes in the Upper Wono and Sha villages. It would also flood 6 important religious sites, including the Wono Monastery, which dates back to the 13th century and is known for its ancient murals. As the villagers fight to protect their sacred places, the growing demands along the Yangtze pose new challenges. The cultural clash over China's hydro ambitions. The villagers believe the project did not respect the importance of these sacred places, which play a key role in the religious and cultural life of the Tibetan Buddhist community. This issue shows the risks China is taking in its efforts to grow its economy. The Yangtze River, which is the longest river in Asia at over 6,000 kilometers, plays a crucial role in China's development. Starting from the Tibetan Plateau, the river runs across the country and flows into the East China Sea near Shanghai. It supports industries, provides water to millions of people, and contributes about 20% of China's GDP, especially in the Delta region. While building large dams can help cities get electricity, prevent flooding, and provide water for farming, they also come with big risks. These structures need huge amounts of water, around 22 billion cubic meters, which is controlled through 46 gates. Even though these projects are meant to help with sustainable growth, they can also damage the environment, displace communities, and destroy important cultural sites. But this wasn't the only problem. China's push for hydroelectric power is also causing tensions with India. For example, they're building a huge dam near the Brahmaputra River, which is close to the Indian border. The Three Gorges Dam, the biggest dam in the world, shows how determined China is to use its rivers for energy. While these dams help China move toward renewable energy, they also harm fragile ecosystems and threaten ancient Tibetan landmarks. With the reservoir at the Three Gorges Dam reaching its limit due to heavy rainfall and the ever-present risk of earthquakes in China, people are questioning whether the benefits of these massive dams are worth the possible dangers. In northern China, the upper part of the Yangtze River, also called the Jinsha River, flows between Tibet and Sichuan. This region has a massive potential to generate hydroelectric power. Experts believe it could produce 112 gigawatts of electricity, which is about one-fourth of China's total hydroelectric capacity. This area is well known for its fast-moving rivers that come down from the high Tibetan Plateau to the lower lands, making it an ideal place for generating power. The energy from the water in these rivers is being used to help China reach its carbon neutrality goals sooner. Hydroelectric power is a key part of their plan to reduce carbon emissions. But the big challenge is that these regions, with their fast rivers and tall mountains, are often unstable and prone to natural disasters. This makes building in these areas very risky. For example, in the Himalayas, there's a lot of potential for hydroelectric power because the rivers are fed by glaciers and melting snow. However, this area is one of the most earthquake-prone regions in the world. The meeting of two major tectonic plates creates many fault lines, which means there's always the risk of landslides, earthquakes, and floods that could damage or destroy the dams built in this region. A good case to consider is the Sichuan province, home to the famous Three Gorges Dam. While it generates a lot of hydroelectric power, the province is also known for being vulnerable to earthquakes. In 2008, an earthquake in the nearby Wenchuan area took over 87,000 lives. Even though the Three Gorges Dam survived, this disaster highlighted the dangers of building in such unstable areas. There are still concerns today about landslides and tremors, which threaten the safety of the dams. With high hopes for energy, the land's shaky nature adds a layer of risk. The last promise. While the potential for hydroelectric power is huge, the unstable ground adds an extra layer of difficulty to building safe and lasting structures. In the Jinsha River area, the way the tectonic plates move makes the land especially prone to earthquakes, which complicates construction even more. The largest dam in this river system will stand at 239 meters tall, higher than the Hoover Dam in the United States. Building such a massive structure right on the riverbed is no easy task. It requires placing rocks and concrete to make the river's soft bed stable enough to support the dam. But that's not the worst part. The surrounding mountains are steep and prone to landslides and avalanches, which means engineers have had to build large concrete barriers to stop erosion and keep the land stable. Some of these blocks are as big as skyscrapers and are strategically placed along the cliffs to protect the dam. The Yangtze River, while a source of energy and life, is also notorious for its violent floods. In the 20th century alone, these floods caused around 300,000 deaths. One of the most tragic floods occurred in 1931, eliminating about 145,000 people. After that, floods continued to wipe out farmland and cause billions of dollars in economic damage. Despite its importance, the Yangtze River presents significant challenges and dangers. In 1994, work began on the massive Three Gorges Dam to protect over 15 million people living in Shanghai and the lower Yangtze River floodplains. This huge dam was designed to stop floods across about 15,000 square kilometers. It was China's way of controlling nature, which has shaped the country's landscape for centuries. The dam was expensive, costing somewhere between $28 and $60 billion, though the exact amount is unclear due to a mix of private and government funding. Standing almost 200 meters tall and stretching over 2 kilometers across the wide Yangtze River, it was even built to handle earthquakes up to a 6.0 magnitude. Once it was finished, the dam created the Three Gorges Reservoir, a massive body of water that extends about 600 kilometers upstream. It can hold nearly 40 billion cubic meters of water. At the time, it became the largest hydroelectric facility in the world, producing more than 20,000 megawatts of power. To give you an idea, that's more than 20 times the power of the Hoover Dam and about the same as 18 nuclear power plants. If the same energy were produced using coal, it would add 100 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. The dam also made the Yangtze River easier to navigate, allowing large ships to travel deeper into China, which helped boost trade. But these benefits came with major downsides. The dam has caused serious environmental damage. It changed river ecosystems, endangered wildlife, increased waterborne diseases, worsened water quality by slowing down the river, and even caused landslides and small earthquakes. But this wasn't the worst part. More than 1 million people had to leave their homes because of the rising water. Communities were destroyed, and many cultural sites along the riverbanks were submerged. To try to address these environmental problems, An additional $4.8 billion was set aside during construction to build new water treatment and waste disposal sites upstream. Still, these issues continue to cause debate. The dam represents China's incredible engineering skill, but it also serves as a reminder of the huge costs that come with such large-scale projects. As water levels rise, so do concerns over the loss of history and tradition. The cultural casualties of China's rush to dam. Beyond the environmental effects, the dam also threatens China's rich cultural history. Historic temples, tall pagodas, and sacred monasteries, some hundreds of years old, are at risk of being destroyed by the rising reservoir waters. These places aren't just tourist sites, they are essential to the communities that live around them. In places like Tibet, monasteries are more than spiritual centers, they are the heart of village life. Losing one is like tearing out a community's soul. But what's even more worrying is that these dams are being built on land that isn't stable, threatening not just the buildings but also the culture and history they hold. In areas where earthquakes are common, 2007 was a particularly shaky year. Over 100 tremors were recorded between the Sichuan Basin and the Jinsha River. There's a growing fear that a big earthquake could hit the fault along the Jengar River, raising serious concerns about the safety of the many dams along the river. If just one of these dams were to break, it could cause a chain reaction where more dams fail, leading to a much bigger disaster. But earthquakes aren't the only danger these dams bring. They also threaten important Tibetan cultural sites and old communities. Building just one large dam would create a massive reservoir that could stretch for miles, forcing people out of their homes and changing the landscape forever. According to an official report, the Jengar Dam could force around 4,000 people to leave their homes and flood 5 major temples. One of the most at-risk sites is the Wo Monastery, built in the 13th century, which holds ancient frescoes and murals that have survived for hundreds of years. These priceless artworks could be lost forever if the dam goes up and the waters rise. And this isn't just happening quietly. Tibetans have protested against the dam, trying to stop its construction. However, it's been hard for them to make their voices heard since the Chinese government tightly controls the Tibetan areas. Ever since the military took control of Tibet in 1950, China has pushed to blend Tibetan culture into a more unified national identity that matches the Communist Party's ideals. Tibetan monasteries are more than just places for worship. They are at the heart of the community, deeply tied to its spirituality, culture, and social life. So, when a monastery is destroyed, it's not just the building that's lost. Centuries of tradition, spirituality, and identity are wiped out, leaving a deep void where there was once a thriving community. But even with these strong protests from the Tibetan people, the Chinese government hasn't budged. They see the construction on the Jinsha River, a key part of the Yangtze, as essential to meeting China's huge hydroelectric needs. These massive dams are part of the country's push to develop quickly, though there are serious risks involved. Some locals compare these projects to fast food because, just like fast food, they offer quick benefits but come with big long-term problems. Sure, these dams will provide much-needed electricity to millions of people, but the cost is incredibly high. Entire villages and significant cultural treasures, like 700-year-old monasteries with priceless murals, could be lost underwater forever. These murals have survived wars and revolutions but now face destruction in the name of progress. With the threat of natural disasters looming, the costs of progress come into question. The risks of giant dams and earthquake zones. The region where these dams are being built is prone to earthquakes and landslides. A sudden shift in the ground or an unexpected earthquake could cause these massive dams to fail, setting off a catastrophic chain of dam collapses, with devastating effects on the areas downstream. While China's energy needs are huge and these dams are key to meeting those needs, the real question is, how do you weigh the immediate gains of energy production against the permanent loss of cultural history and the threat of environmental disaster? Balancing the need for more energy with preserving cultural heritage and protecting nature is one of the biggest challenges for many countries today. If you're wondering why a particular dam is such a big deal, let's take a look at how it stacks up against other dams around the world. You'll be amazed at how China's enormous dam outshines most of them. Around the world, massive dams like the Three Gorges Dam in China and the KBA Dam in Zambia are incredible feats of human engineering. These structures not only provide power and control flooding, but they also change entire landscapes. While they bring a lot of benefits, they also come with their own set of problems. Let's take a journey across the globe from Zambia to Canada and explore some of the world's largest dams, not just in terms of size, but also the vast amounts of water they hold. These large reservoirs are framed by their natural surroundings, huge cliffs, wide valleys, and the powerful rivers they control. There are some impressive records when it comes to dams. For example, the KBA Dam, built between 1955 and 1959 on the Zambezi River, right on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, is a giant. It holds the largest reservoir by volume, with the ability to store a jaw-dropping 185 billion cubic meters of water. French architect André Coin designed it, and the dam stretches 579 meters long and stands 128 meters tall. The construction was tough, and sadly many workers, especially Italians, lost their lives building it. Today the KBA Dam generates 1,320 megawatts of power for both Zambia and Zimbabwe. Efforts to repair and maintain this colossal structure continue today. Over in Ghana, we find the Akasambo Dam, which created Lake Volta, the world's largest man-made lake by surface area. Built between 1961 and 1965, this reservoir holds 144 billion cubic meters of water, making it the third largest in the world. Not only does this dam power Ghana, but it also provides energy to neighboring Benin and Togo. In Canada, there's the Daniel Johnson Dam on the Manicouagan River in Quebec. This dam can store 140 billion cubic meters of water, and it also holds the title of being the world's longest multiple-arch dam, standing 214 meters tall. It's named after a former Quebec premier who pushed for more hydroelectric power in the region. The Guri Dam in Venezuela, also called the Simon Bolivar Hydroelectric Plant, is another powerhouse. Its reservoir holds 135 billion cubic meters of water. For a long time, it was the most powerful dam in the world, generating 10,200 megawatts of electricity, enough to cover over 70% of Venezuela's power needs. Finally, there's the Aswan High Dam on the Nile River in Egypt. Its reservoir, Lake Nasser, can hold 132 billion cubic meters of water. Built between 1960 and 1968, this dam produces 2,100 megawatts of electricity and is also essential for flood control. What do you think? Are the environmental impacts of projects like the Aswan High Dam justified by their benefits? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more.